Hi there, welcome to video number 6, looking at the Black Square King Air using X's and O's to interface the Stream Deck, the X-Touch MIDI controller, and my Honeycomb yoke and throttle quadrant. We'll be using pretty much all of that at some point during this video. And today we're looking at the pedestal, the controls that are between the two seats. So let's get into the cockpit and have a look at where that is. So we're talking about down here. We finished the last video looking at passenger comfort, looking at the temperature and things like that. This continues that theme really. We're looking at the cabin pressurization. So it takes warmed and pressurized air from the bleeding it off the engine, and we can control the altitude that the cabin appears to be at. So we're trying to keep it at a comfortable level, so sort of oxygen levels and that are fine. But there is a limit to how high we can fly. If the difference of pressure between the actual outside air pressure and the inside cabin pressure is too great, it can cause failures, structural failures. It can cause a leak. So this sort of tells you the maximum altitude you can fly at if you want to maintain this level within the cabin. So we do need to be able to select that wisely depending on which altitude we're going to fly at. There are some gauges up here where we can look at the differential of the pressure and see what's going on, and also we can control the rate of change of the pressure within the cabin. Again, too quick a rate of change is uncomfortable for the passengers, but these are a little tricky to see when we're in flight. Once we've got the levers in position, we can see that we cover things up. So on my Stream Deck, I do use some gauges, sort of mimic those onto my Stream Deck, so they're easier to see. So let's have a look at firstly controlling the altitude we're aiming for and the rate of climb, the rate of change, and they are controlled. Well, the first one is just simply one key event, writing to a 1 into here to tell it to increase the altitude if we turn the knob clockwise. So I've got a knob on the rotary that I'm going to use for my X-Touch, that will increase it when we turn clockwise and decrease it when we turn anti-clockwise. So it's a pretty simple thing to write. Let me just show you where that is. Really ought to read the LVARs in, just so if we go looking for a variable, we've got them all available to us, and that should take about 20 seconds, something like that, to go through everything. It's actually reading through the files. And there we are, that's finished. So if I just turn the dial on the my X-Touch, you can see these are the ones that lit up, and there's the decrease one for the anti-clockwise. So I'll just go through and show you how these are done, how you insert these. If I start with a new one, if you just want to insert an event, which is what you normally want to do, you just drop this down, and you can go, and you can filter for things. You can look for these native events. You can look for LVARs, scripts, the input events that Microsoft are now using. So putting an event in is relatively easy. And having put an event in there, you then just have to rotate, and it detects straight away, oh, it's the X-Touch Mini that you're using, and then which direction you turned it in. You need to watch out. If I just turn a different knob, the first time I move it, just one click, it just knows I've clicked it, but it doesn't know the direction. It's not until I make a second move that it knows which way I've turned it. So you need to be aware that you need to give it a bit of a turn before it actually identifies it. If it's a variable you're trying to put in, you can change this and you can pick a couple of different variables that you want to use from types from in here. And you can either type it in or you can do a copy and paste. If you go into your scripts editor, find the variable you're after. I'm just going to choose any old random one at the moment. Really doesn't matter what it is. If I right hand click on that, so right hand click, close that, so it hasn't actually entered it, but you can now go back into X's and O's and you can paste that into there. So it guarantees that you're not going to make a misspelling and that sort of thing. It saves a bit of typing. Okay, so that's the pressurization. I said I've used 3 text gauges on my Stream Deck, and these are those. So text gauge is really relatively easy to use. You just give it a title and tell it which variable to look for. And so I use this one here, the pressurization of the cabin altitude on here. There I'll put the altitude goal, which again is an A variable. And the last one here is an L variable, which is the pressurization climb rate. That's what I put onto here. And I've just I've left it saying L to remind me that it's a local variable that I was looking at. I probably should edit that out now. So that's gone. Okay, so that's what's on there. The last bit is the rate of change, and we need to write a script for that. So that's what the script looks like. Just it's read the variable, add 50 to it. So this is the reverse Polish notation in operation. Here's one value, here's another value, add them together and write it back in. So that's the clockwise script, and this is the anti-clockwise script. The last bit of, if we get back into the cockpits, the last bit of the pressurization is this 3-way switch here. In the center position, it's just in pressure mode, so it'll pressure quite happily. You have the opportunity to open a valve to dump the pressure. So you do that relatively close to the ground as you're getting in towards landing, so you equalize the pressure between the cabin and the actual pressure outside. So on my 3-way switch, what I do is I use that as an event button, and that's the short press because that's the one I want to use when I'm flying. On the long press, it goes into test mode, and you only use that really when you're testing the system's working as part of the run-up procedure. So on my Stream Deck, it's going to look like this. On the short click, we're going to just write a 1 to the pressure dump switch, and that acts as a toggle. It doesn't say toggle as part of it, but it is a toggle event that happens. And this is the what we put on the a script that we're going to call if we do a long press on this event button, and it toggles whether in test mode or not. So on the Stream Deck, it looks like this. It's my pressure dump here. So the ordinary press does this toggling business here. That's the variable that's going to toggle. I'm having it as repeat as no because I want to do a long press. I don't want to hold it down and this start repeating, because I want to use the long press to call that toggle for the pressurization. So that's how we get up and down movement, basically. 2 functions working from the same button. You could, if you wanted to, separate them onto 2 buttons. It wouldn't matter, but it's nice having the whole function as one. Okay, last little bit of passenger comfort, a bit more dramatic than just having it pressurised, is what to do when things fail. And if we go back to the pedestal view, just hidden here and here are two kind of pull levers. And this one here readies the oxygen system, and this one here deploys it. And I hope you can hear the sort of hiss as we're deploying the oxygen. Let's close that off. So we need two buttons, one to ready the system, one to deploy. So a script for the left hand one, this is the one to make it ready. So you've got to invert whether it's ready or not, so it becomes ready. And we also need to switch on circuit 82 to make it work. I've said it before, but if you haven't seen the previous videos, one of the weird things about a scripting language is, although we've updated it here, say if it was not ready, so the value is 0, we've updated it and written a 1 into here, this doesn't get read again until we start the script another time. So it will still believe it's 0 here. So if we just wrote that value straight into here, it would switch the circuit off. So we have to invert it here as well to switch it on. And this is the deploying script, just another toggle. It's the passenger oxygen manual that gets inverted, and that's what makes the oxygen flow. We don't have to worry about the animation, that just happens straight away anyway. So on my Stream Deck, bring that in, my oxygen ready is a toggle switch, a function, calls the script, and I read that value that we've been changing, because then it turns the indicator on for me so I can see whether we've deployed it or not. So I press that now, you'll see that the indicator comes on and off. And the same with the deploying the oxygen. Just writing this there's a script, but it's called as a key event, and we read that variable that we use in there to determine whether it's actually got airflow or not. Okay, we're going to change a little bit here and go back into the next bit, where we're going to start looking at the instrumentation and the autopilot that's available. This is duplicated also actually on the instrument panel, but this is a three-way switch that controls the DME mode of the HSI, I think it is. And it's going to look at the time to go, the speed, or it'll display, I assume ET means estimated time of arrival, but I'm not sure. At the moment, every time I use it, it just shows 00. So I haven't really explored it. I don't use it that much, to be honest. The DME tend to fly with the GPS showing me my distance to go, but it's relatively easy to make the switch work. So I've got an event switch, and a short press, I'm going to use it to move the switch down. Ooh, misspelling now. It's what it does is it checks if we're in position 0. So if it's at the top, move it to position 1, and if it's in position 1, then just move it to position 2. So it's just writing the right variable in to move the position. And I use a long press to move it upwards, so it starts again checking, are we at the bottom? If we are, move it to the middle. If we're in the middle, move it to the top. So that's all we need to do, just to move that button around. The next bit is looking at the autopilot. So again, we'll get back into the cockpit and have a look at what we've got available in the autopilot. Obviously, we're going to have an autopilot engage. We'll have that button there to turn on or off. And we've got all the various modes that we can select. And I don't program them in here. I've got them already on my Honeycomb throttle quadrant. By default, as you just using the default profile, they work absolutely perfectly. So I'm not going to bother rewriting those. That's what I paid money for, to have them on the throttle quadrant. The two that are different here is this climb and descent profile. So we'll have a look at that and see and show you how that works. But let's get back into here. So it's just the climb and descend I'm going to worry about. The climb and descend, it basically, as it says here, it sets an indicated airspeed airspeed it's going to maintain, and it adjusts the trim to change the rate of climb and descent. It hasn't got auto throttle, so you manage the throttles. So if you're already trimmed for level flight and then you want to climb, you press the climb button, it actually won't climb. Well, what it will do is it will automatically reduce the airspeed so that it can climb. If you did it manually, if you just wanted to climb, you would either have to give it more power to climb, or aim to fly slower and trim so that you be climbing. So that's what it does. It manages that, and it chooses an airspeed and does the best rate of climb it can with that airspeed, with the power you've got. And it chooses different indicated airspeeds depending on the altitude that you are flying at. So it can climb more efficiently at lower altitudes. Basically, what happens. The descent, again, when you tell it to descend, it picks an airspeed that's appropriate and will trim down, and you need to reduce your power. You've got to control the power to do that, and perhaps as you get sort of closer to towards your stall speed, look at flaps and things. That's in your control. So let's have a look at how it works. There's quite a lot of script going on for the climb. It's all if you use the behavior tool. If I get it to the aircraft, yeah, let's look at the behavior tool here. And I'm just going to change the file I'm looking at. So I'm using the analog King Air file, and if I do climb here, looking at the climb button, you'll see there's the script there that I'm basically using and copying. I've done some adjustments to it to make it easier to use, but it's got all the various parts of checking what's going on and choosing the different speeds that it's going to try to maintain. So there's 1 at 120, 1 at 140, 1 at 160. So it's going to choose intelligently which one's the best one to choose. So go back to my script here. So I'm not going to read through it all, and obviously you can pause this if you want to get their values, but you need to be very careful. It's a very nested if sorts of statements. So you've got to look at how your braces, the curly brackets, are being used to make this work. But that's it. That's what it does. And if you press the climb button, it runs this script. You'll see the indicated airspeed change, and you'll see climb. What I'll do at the end of this video, the end of these videos, I'll do a test flight and go through and sort of demonstrate all these functions for you. The descent is a simpler script. Basically, it chooses an indicated airspeed and instructs it to do a flight level change. It does all the maths here of what speed it should set. And again, we can I'll demonstrate how that works. So these are buttons on the X Touch. the climb button calls the climb button script, and this descend button calls the other script. So quite easy to set up here. But I actually have them on my Xtouch as well, because I may want to be in a different folder here to do other things. So I have them available constantly on my Xtouch. So that's where they sit. So that's all pretty easily used. And obviously, I'm often following either following a heading or I'm following a nav, either using the GPS or using VOR. So I don't tend to use these other functions very much. But if you're just say using the autopilot for altitude hold, you can get it to roll left and right and make turns, rather than you doing it with the yoke. And this would give a smoother ride apparently, if you use this. So we've got this ability to roll left and right, and we can also engage a soft ride button and a half bank mode, which makes it less dramatic for passengers. Remember, we are catering for passengers in the back of this. So the roll, again, I've written it onto an well, I've run out of rotaries available on my Xtouch, but I did have it on there. But I've now got it programmed into a button, in fact, 2 buttons on my Stream Deck, and this is the variable to roll left. So it's scripted to roll left. It's got to check that you're not banking more than 30 degrees. That's its limit. So long as you haven't banked more than 30 degrees, it will just take the number and write it in. So it just changes the variable so that it banks more, and it turns on the bank hold, and then it tells it what number to put into here to actually make it bank. It's fairly simple stuff. The roll right here, again, don't roll more than 30 degrees to the right, and if you haven't reached the limit yet, change it by 1 degree and inform everybody what's going on. So in my Stream Deck, I've got my roll left and roll right, and I can show you that working. This, if you look at the behavior and look at the roll left and roll right, they've made it more complex or more accurate. It's quite a long script, because when you if I get into the cockpit here, when you first start turning it, I've just done 1 click, it moves across 5 degrees or so quite quickly, and then each time I turn it after that, it's individual clicks turning, and again as you return to center, it sort of moves quite quickly. I haven't put that into the script, and it actually, funnily enough, does it. If I press the roll to the left on my Stream Deck, you see it's done the first 5 degrees, and now every time I press it, it moves along, and I can turn to the right, move over to the right. So on my Stream Deck, let's go back there. There's the roll left, there's the roll right, and I wanted to have a button that would quickly center this up for me. So holding this down, I've got the repeat switched on, so it will move over, and it seems to run about once every 30, every half of a second. So it's relatively slow. So again, it's quite pleasant for the passengers who have dramatic changes. But I wanted to be able to center things quite quickly and know that it was centered. So I've tried a couple of different solutions, but this one works quite well. Just literally, this is saying this is a little mini script, and it writes a 0 into the autopilot role, and it does change nicely. It doesn't change dramatically. So let's show you that in operation. Let's have a serious roll to the right. So we'll bring that all the way over to the right, and if I press my quick center button, it just puts it back in the middle. So that's what I've done. I just wrote the script straight onto the button. So there's my centering. Soft ride and half bank, again, really easy. Just writing a little script here, which when you press the button, it'll engage soft ride or disengage. It's just a toggle piece of script, and the same for the half. It's not that for the half bank. For the half bank, we just write literally to the half here, the input event to the half bank button. So 1 for on. I'm using an on-off event. 1 for on, and a 0 for off. And again, it just toggles between the two. So I copied the wrong one into here. I've no idea how to test them, whether it's a softer ride or not, but it does certainly make the buttons work. Last little bit on here is, let me go back up to our cockpit. We've got some switches here, one for the rudder boost, one to turn on our electric trim, and the yaw damper here to be engaged. Nothing will happen with that until we've got power running and the avionics running. Just get some external power, get the avionics working. When I engage the yaw damper, you'll see that there are indicators there. The trim is in red, so if I turn the trim on, it takes that warning sign away. And the rudder boost, there's an annunciator on here for the rudder boost. So again, if I turn that on, you'll see that the annunciator's gone off. So that's where things are happening. And again, really nice and easy to use. For the rudder boost, we just need to toggle this circuit switch here. So 125 controls that. The electric trim is on circuit 73. And then this one here is a toggle. We need to write that value. So if we look at that on my Stream Deck, this one here is using a toggle, so we get to write to it using that key event, the toggle, and we need to read that variable, the A variable, for the yaw damper to see if it's on or not. Rudder boost, just literally switch on that circuit or switch it off, and looking at the variable to see if it's switched on. And electric trim, again, an on-off event. And again, I've got those also on my over on my X-Touch, because I had some spare buttons, and it's easier than keep going in and out of different folders to turn things on and off when you're using this sort of folder system. But I have got indicators on there, so again, at least I can see whether things are switched on or not. And the last little bit to look at when we get into the cockpit is the emergency gear extension. Now, this is like a hydraulic pump that will pump up if your electric circuit fails, or the relay fails, which is here, for the gear lever, you drop the handle down and then you pump that handle, and firstly you'll get a red light and then eventually you'll get green lights. I can't make that work. I can animate the gear handle. I can make it that animate up and down, but I haven't actually made it switch the lights on and actually deploy the gear. Doing it in the sort of manually here, it's about 30 pumps you need to get the pressure up to make it work. But I just, for some reason, haven't discovered how to make it work. I've looked at the script that's here. If we look at the emergency gear, emergency handle here, and I've worked through the script as much as I can, but there are some variables you just can't get access to. The E variables and XMLR variables and things, for some reason I can't get access to them. So if I do have a gear failure, I'm at the moment having to actually use the mouse and drop the gear down. If anybody else knows how to do that, I'd be really grateful. So that's one. It's still a work in progress. So that's it. So that's what's on the pedestal. So I will be looking at, let's get back into it, the comms and the ADF later, because really they're part of the same process I'm going to use for those. So when I go through that, I'll talk about those there as well. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for looking, and I'll produce some more videos in a while.